Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another week of VCTV, the Venture Capital TV. This is the first episode in the week, not first episode, I meant in the week, the Monday episode. And I really love it, the kind of topics we're going to touch upon today. And before I start the show, I like to welcome back my friends, my speakers, the audience, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you had a good weekend. You had a good rest over the weekend. And we are all like geared up for the week. And this is the start of the week. So today we have a 1 hour session. We're going to split into two parts where the speakers and the investors are going to share their insights about what happened in 2020 for the topic. And next we have Gary from Yotta Labs. He's back again from UK. He's going to talk about his project. And that's how we end our show after that 1 hour. So before I start with my speakers of the day, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Sunny Mohanty. I'm the regional director of LATOKEN based in Singapore, and I host VCTV. VCTV is from LATOKEN that got launched in February 2020 in light of the pandemic. And this is a platform where we connect investors like yourselves with entrepreneurs like Gary. The sole objective is to connect both parties and find some synergies to collaborate together. You never know what's going to spurn out of that collaboration. So that's why we are here to connect the dots. I would like to start with the speakers now in the order I see on my Zoom lobby today. So I have my dear friend Natasha back on VCTV from Delhi. And Natasha, welcome back. How was your weekend? And how was your weekend? And how are
It was
you?
good. It's always great to hear from you, Sonny, and to be part of the VCTV webinar editions, which you keep having, and editions on the investments during this pandemic for something like technology, which has seen a lot of interest. It's good that you're touching up on it and you're keeping the momentum on this. So I like the consistency which you guys have and the commitment towards building this platform. So ourselves, I'm actually the co-founder of Venture Gurukul. We are a SEBI Securities and Exchange Board of India registered fund, which is focused on doing early stage investments in tech startups in India, with, of course, a vision to go global. So as an investment thesis, we look at investing in ventures which are bringing in digital transformation of day-to-day transactions of consumers through the tech landscape or the mobile internet landscape. So broadly, we look at fintech, health tech, media and entertainment, agri-tech, these sort of ventures which we look at. And it's always great to be part of this.
Excellent, and welcome back. I'm very excited to have you back on VCTV.
Likewise.
Great. So next I have Telly. Hi Telly, welcome back. How was your weekend? What did you do? Did you do a lot of I was telling you what I did over the weekend. So how was your weekend? What did you do?
My weekend was working. It's that time of the year where everything is happening so fast and you're closing a number of deals. You only have about maybe 10 more days in December. So yes, right. I worked throughout the weekend. I didn't enjoy myself. Well, I did enjoy it, closing deals.
Right.
So thanks for having me back on the program. It's a pleasure to always be on VCTV and to connect with some of my friends here as well. Hi, Jose. And also meeting new people. So my name's Telly. I live in St. Kitts and Nevis, that's in the Caribbean. And well, where do I start? I'm the co-founder of Beyond Capital Markets. This is a digital financial market infrastructure company and digital asset company. I'm also the head of governance and execution of Bantu Blockchain Foundation, which is a brand new protocol. Blockchain protocol. It's designed by Africans for the diaspora and for humanity in general. I also wear another hat where I am the co-founder of ProHouse Labs. This is a a fintech incubator. And within that portfolio, we have a number of different companies ranging from climate to insurtech to EdTech. So we have a number of different initiatives, and that's just one of the many different ventures I'm part of. My interest this morning in terms of the topic at hand, smart cities, smart transportation, is really focused holistically on the whole aspect of digital transformation as it applies to smart cities and intelligent infrastructures. And my interest also lies in increasing ways and means we can increase capital allocations or increase capital allocation to driving those transformations in infrastructure. Those infrastructures tend to be very traditional models. So it's actually unique when you start applying digital technology and digital finance to kind of create new models for increasing smart finance. So I look
Great.
forward to the topic today.
Excellent. Thank you, Telly, for sharing those intro quickly. And yes, very relevant topic today for you, as you rightly said. Next, I have Jose. Hi, Jose. Welcome back. And how was your weekend?
I worked this weekend, although I tried to rest a little bit, but it was quite hard. But I was able to take an afternoon off, so that was not bad at all. I had quite a good time in that afternoon. Well, the introduction. I'm Jose Grasa, so I've been a serial entrepreneur, business angel, and a venture capitalist. I like much more to be an entrepreneur. I always say this because I'm much more involved in the building of the company itself, which excites me much more. Today, I'm working on two things. One is something that goes to my heart, which I call business inclusion, and we are trying to build a new generation of entrepreneurs in the next 5 to 10 years. Those entrepreneurs essentially come from the millennial and the I generation. The way we do it is we are giving them a very short training program, and then we give them a real-time environment in which they can put that into practice and start generating free cash flows in a very short time frame, typically 6 months, which is much shorter than in any other system. And if they achieve that, then we have an additional for them, which is the BizMoney fund. That fund is essentially, we are just starting with it now. So we are going out to get the cash for that fund. And the fund, basically what it does, it helps those who are more unfavored but are very talented to get some financial help during this process. Now, typically we look at solutions that are definitely in pre-seed stage, at the absolute seed, and then what we say is there are other type of investors that pick it up from that point on forward. So then our job is more or less done. So right. That's our focus. And this topic today, I have some experience in it. I had an investment a few years ago. Today, nobody talks a lot about it. It's domotica, but you can also look at it like intelligent housing. And I had an investment in an intelligent house. So there's something definitely that maybe I can come and put on the table today.
I really like the way you put it, intelligent house. That sounds so intelligent. Thank you, Jose. And welcome back on VCTV. We'd love to hear what's all intelligent house look like or sound like. Thank you. So next we have Gary, who's back on VCTV after a break, but he was building something within this time. Hi, Gary. Welcome back on VCTV. How are things back in UK and how was your weekend?
Yeah, so weekend has been work as usual. The UK, we came out of a national lockdown on the 2nd, but things are still very peculiar. But yes, it's now getting towards Christmas. It's 2 degrees today, so yeah, it's getting quite cool. Some of the guys have had snow already, so it's getting that way. But yeah, it's great to be back. It's great to update on the progress. The pandemic has not slowed us. In fact, it's rapidly increased in what we're doing, because it's brought to the forefront government level digitization. And through the pandemic, there's a lot of new innovations the governments are looking at, because they realise there's a lot of holes in not just finance, but also getting funds to people, and there's better ways of doing it. So it'll be interesting to explain what we're doing.
Fantastic. Guys going to have a white Christmas soon. So 2 degrees is going to be 0. I know that for sure.
Yeah.
So everybody seems to be working over the weekend. Is it because we are closing 2020 soon? Is it because we just want to wrap up things and just start with a fresh for 2021? Is it because everybody in the panel was working over the weekend? And same here. Even I was working over the weekend. I mean, I took little breaks here and there, tried to be a little physically active over the weekend, but most part I was working. So let's start with Natasha about saying goodbye to 2020 with the trends in this space. Like we have a few more days before the holidays kick in, right? Few more days, literally the working days I'm talking about, even though most of us maybe maybe working. But what has happened in 2020 with respect to the topic that you can share with the audience? Natasha, over to you.
Yeah, I think we are working very hard over the weekend to ensure that this pandemic and these repercussions do not continue in the following year. So just finish off whatever is there for this weekend and just be like, we're done with this. Next year, please, next year should be a new year and nothing of this sort. So I think, yeah, that's one of the things, and that's something in everyone's mind. And with the vaccine which has been rolled out, the aspirations are high, stock markets are booming. So yeah. So it's a very intense and interesting time from an investor standpoint. And if you talk about trends, I think this current pandemic has just put everything in the spanner for everyone this year, and it's been very tough to bring predictability in very uncertain times, especially how trends for startups will pick up. I was just interestingly reading, Sequoia had very famously published a black swan event for the pandemic, and warning its founders is going to be a doomsday for everyone, and it's be all and done all for everything. But in fact, investors like Sequoia have gained the most during this pandemic, because it's been an upsurge and a great opportunity for a lot of tech startups, right? It's been adverse for a couple of other of them, but still, hey, Airbnb is still going for their IPO, in which Sequoia owns 30%, right? So it's very interesting and very unpredictable times, and it's very difficult to predict how things will pan out in the near future, because it all depends on how long are we going to sustain this, or how long will it take to build the herd immunity, how will this affect the consumer behavior in the long run? Was this a very short-term thing? There were strong consumer trends which emerged during the pandemic in terms of the leap towards digital and digitization, in terms of the upsurge we saw in e-commerce, upsurge we saw in mobile internet payments, and various other things, right? But it'll be interesting to see how this really continues with this momentum of the pandemic fizzling out, and these sort of consumer trends persisting in the long runs. But nevertheless, I think, hey, it's exciting time for investors, and while it's really hard to see how trends will figure out, but there have been some opportunities which have come up in the space. And if you talk about the topic today, which is focused on smart cities and smart transportation, we have seen, if I talk about from a mobility standpoint, we have seen a good amount of interest which built up towards micromobility before the pandemic. And during the pandemic as well, there was a usage in trends for people to shift towards a micromobility sort of a transportation standpoint. More from the standpoint of, let's say, if it's an e-scooter, to rent an e-scooter for a day rather than commute in a shared cab or the public transportation system. how they have eventually worked out in the past is not really continued with the momentum with the pandemic, right? So it had brought a lot of opportunities for a lot of micromobility startups, which were offering these e-scooter sort of platform, and a lot of startups to work on the innovation from the battery technology standpoint, and how to increase the efficiency from the battery standpoint, the longevity of the battery, the kilometers of a battery does in one charge. We were interestingly talking to one particular micromobility startup, which has launched their own e-scooter built for supercharging time of around 3 hours, covering 100 kilometers at one stretch, right? So that's something huge, which they have worked towards, and is quite economical from the standpoint of the price point they were offering their e-scooter for. So these sort of innovations have seen good opportunity, and we hope that this sort of momentum continues for tech startup going forward. If you talk from smart building perspective, I think there's a lot of opportunity which will come up, especially with 5G coming in, where there's a good opportunity for everything to be internet connected. All devices would be seamlessly talking to each other. So that's something which we see happening with 5G. And 5G, though it will take its time to roll out, possibly not next year, but going forward, sometime it should come up. And there are a lot of startups which are working towards IoT smart home already, right? With the pandemic, we have seen people desperate to go complete contactless with even opening doors. So something like automatic door lock solution, which we have seen an upsurge with a lot of hotels and accommodation areas really pick up. So that's an opportunity where I've seen some of these travel tech startups really focus on, in terms of how do you become completely contactless in this current ecosystem. If I talk about, there's been a very interesting acquisition in this space in India of a company called MyGate, right? So they were actually providing contactless building management solution for condominiums in India, and they had a huge sign up of condominiums which were very desperate to go completely contactless with terms of who's coming in, who's going out, all electronically monitored, face recognition, thermal screening, those sort of things. So we have seen upsurge in this sort of a trend, which these companies would have taken like around 2-3 years to achieve. To just happen within a couple of months. So this has been a boon for a couple of startups, and we really hope this momentum continues in the future. So that's all I can say.
Wow, that's a lot of insights, Natasha, to be honest. A lot of everything. No, it's quite interesting to hear about the smart car, buildings, transportations, everything coming from you, and that's what I really like to hear from you. And again, our audience would love to obviously hear that as well. So next, I'd go for who I see. Sorry, Jose. Sorry, I was a bit of flipping there. Over to you, Jose, with the same question. We are ending 2020 in few more days. So just would like to know your insights about, as Natasha rightly said, digitally we may be 5 years ahead of what we were just talking and speaking about it. So just would like to hear from you as well.
I think that a lot of people oversee one point, and I'm a very practical person. So I look at things normally in a very realistic way. What I can tell you is the following. If we look at intelligent houses, right, they were already in place 36 years ago. So the technology, more or less, was already available. And I can tell you that there was a guy in the Netherlands. He became one of the first astronauts from the Netherlands. And he built an intelligent house over there, right, that was exposed for many, many years. And 36 years ago, already with fiber. Okay, with data fiber and a lot of things. So the problem is that we are facing, and this is getting shorter and shorter, fortunate enough for us, is that the time frame between that the technologies come available and they get implemented into society, right, and the adoption of itself can take some time. Now, and this is also the case for what we were talking about a few minutes ago, and Natasha pointed out. The way I look at autonomous vehicles is like this. For me, vehicles, I don't have any need to have a chauffeur, because there is no need for a chauffeur. Because I can tell you one thing, like 4 or 5 years ago, I told this in many shows that we had before, I drove 50, 60, I think, no, 70 kilometers without any chauffeur, and it didn't touch anything in the Tesla. So 4 or 5 years ago, the technology was available, right? It was already available in the car. The car didn't have a permission to do it, but I still activated it. And I went from one place in Portugal up to the airport without braking, without stopping, without concerning about the speed. I didn't do anything. The car drove just by itself. That's it. He would stop at a red light. He would stop and contain the speed in front of a car. And it's quite normal in the US that today you see Teslas on the highway and you don't see anybody inside. And if you look inside, the guys are sleeping inside the car. So it's not uncommon, right? So the technology is here. So putting some buses or trams or other type of vehicles, even there's one city in Colombia, which is Colombia, everybody knows that it's not the most developed country, also not the worst, but Colombia, right? There's a city called Medellin, and maybe everybody knows it from the Netflix series, but anyway, Medellin was this year during COVID the first city, one of the first cities in the world that had small doggy-sized vehicle robots, okay, robotization. And they would pick up the food at the restaurant and deliver it to the door of somebody, that had ordered the food. Fully autonomous. So the problem is not if we are going to get that technology. I would say more like, when are we going to adopt it? Because it's already full-sized available and it can be produced and implemented. So this is the case. Now, if you look at intelligent houses, and to finish this part, I think this is a very interesting subject, is that intelligent houses can be, I would say, almost fully automatic. Like you have your smartphone, and once you approach the house, it opens automatically the door. You don't even need to open your smartphone, it's already connected. And the way you walk, your lights go on or off, or you can even have your food more or less ready at a certain time, as long as you put the food inside, There are so many options available. I can tell you, and this technology is not from the last year, okay? The last intelligent house, a real intelligent house, that costed like 10 million. It's not even a huge amount of money. It was like a villa in Portugal, and it was specially built. And it was more or less the way I'm telling you. Right? Everything was automatic. And, this was like 7 or 8 years ago, right? And it was built by a football player. So it's not unnormal or that we don't have the technologies, we have them. The question is when it's coming out for normal public to be able to have those housing, because the problem is like this. We are still building blocks like chicken farms where we put people inside. And that's how the way cities are built, a huge amount of cities, right? So in my opinion, it's completely unacceptable. People need to have an adequate environment and an adequate lifestyle that they feel comfortable. And COVID will not be the last COVID, because in our lifetimes, if we are going to live 150 years, like our friend Gary Fowler says many times, then every 30 years, we are going to face more or less, one epidemic.
Right.
Like 5 times in your lifetime, right? That you are stuck 2 years in your house, more or less. So the housing, the way they are built, those blocks, and the whole concept, they are, in my opinion, they are like, 50 years behind of everything. Needs to be a radical change.
Yeah. Thank you, Joseph, for sharing those. I agree to a certain point, as you rightly said. I mean, obviously, there is no mass adoption. There was no mass adoption. I went to Vietnam, and I was put up in a condominium. Like the entire place was a smart condominium, in the sense totally contactless, in and out, and everything, lights switching on by itself and everything. But you don't see that everywhere in Vietnam for that. for that matter. But because of, I think, the pandemic, things have really, like Natasha mentioned, things which were not, people were just talking, that just happened this year because of the COVID. And or the example that you gave as well, the autonomous vehicle, I would like to experience that as well. Like, and very interesting to know that you were in one of them before, long before this happened. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Jose, for that. I see, okay, Telly here. Something is wrong with my Zoom lobby today. I'd like to go next for Telly. Telly, please enlighten our audience, our speakers about what happened this year as we end 2020 in a few more days.
Okay, well, um, speakers spoke a lot about some of the areas I was going to share, so I wouldn't really elaborate too much on that. I mean, obviously, with us being stuck at home with different lockdowns, mobility and being able to be contactless are one of the key top trends that's happened this year. Um, I agree with Jose in that, there is a key opportunity for autonomous vehicles and autonomous public transportation. I think that will be actually the lowest hanging fruit in order to foster adoption. The challenge we have is when we're dealing with smart mobility and human behavior, those are the hardest things to change. So it had to take something radical and drastic like a pandemic to really get us to kind of move forward. So I think one of the interesting things I've been actually monitoring is when it comes to smart mobility, I have seen in developing countries, especially in Mexico, I have been observing them really implement smart city transportation, as well as what's interesting too is they're also mapping out communication networks. So that's going to be a really big area of investments. It's even beyond 5G. I mean, 5G, everyone is looking at is the next step. But you also have other technologies like the broadband over power line and being able to bridge that. So a unique project that I'm quite interested in is in Germany. While over the years, it's not new, like most of these things are really not new. They've been testing for a number of years. But this city it's called Project MoMA. And what they had done is actually develop further their smart metering systems, but have built out a smart communication network that was two-way, and it's powered by broadband over power line. So let's face it, most of our grid infrastructure is really antiquated and traditional. And while 5G might take a while to be implemented, it requires new infrastructure. There's still a mechanism that you can actually leverage your existing electricity grid in order to facilitate that. So I think that those type of innovations are quite unique, broadband over power lines. But then this particular company had been able to kind of develop this new communication infrastructure architecture, complete with cybersecurity in it. So I think that's unique. The other area, I mean, moving away from the fact that you need greener, more opportunities, and the fact that we have to social distance. Let's move away from smart transportation and looking at intelligent infrastructure. And even if we look at what's happening in the space of building infrastructure. So on the one hand, you have shifts in the way we live, the way we work, and that happening. But on the other hand, you're having now a greater realization that internally our air quality is a factor and issue. So you have a plethora of opportunities, investment opportunities, where people are starting to put in sensors for air quality, and there are other startups that are developing some really nice solutions all around our air quality within the space. So this is really key, and especially since we know this virus is a little airborne, it does play a big factor in what we're seeing happening this year. So building technology, but also capturing more human, more air quality and other factors that actually affect people's work ethics as well. That's one area of interest. I'm also quite interested in the actual building. So we talk about the technology for the intelligence aspects of things, but also new materials, new mechanisms, new ways of building. I hear Jose, the way we build our buildings, it's just so old, antiquated, and traditional, while you have new systems that are greener and cleaner that also facilitate and help that. So if you look at the downstream opportunity, there are also some supporting technologies that help you fast track this. You even see newer technologies leveraging 3D printing to build these concrete forms that allow you to have a more, should I say, sustainable and should I say airtight hermetic seal when you're building your building. So I think there is a lot there within the building infrastructure and digital transformation within that space. Lastly, obviously, I'm seeing an embedding of finance within the space of smart cities. You know, as we're developing these new solutions, new housing, new models, new technologies, you're actually seeing transactions also being embedded in there. So obviously payments is obviously the obvious one that's been embedded, but you're also seeing from a financing standpoint that these what do you call them, governments and um, what do you call your cities? um, Local governments and I can't remember the name right now, but the local government agencies and authorities, right? Municipalities, that's the word. Yeah, municipalities are starting to look at new ways of crowding in investments into it, and they're using digital platforms. So again, we're seeing more usages of um, technologies like blockchain, like digital assets, in order to kind of crowd in investments for these new solutions. So a lot's been happening in 2020. And I think because we're all moving through this climate change and sustainability drive, we're going to see it run right through 2021. So it's a pretty strong, investment prospect for me.
Yeah, what an irony. 2020 has been really, really, to be in the fast, as rightly Telly said, paced, and Airbnb going for an IPO. I mean, what can we say after that? Great. So we are set for first 30 minutes. We've done with the insights. Next, we have Gary, who is going to share his presentation. He's looking for fundraising. He's looking to make some new partnerships, collaborations with you guys today. So he's going to share his presentation. We have 10 minutes to see his presentation. I would like you to give your feedback after the end of the session. And yes, Gary, over to you now. You can share your presentation.
Okay, thanks, Sunny. Okay, just to give you an overview, Yotta Laboratories, we're now coming into our 7th year. We initially started as a research organization, and with our CTO, who is a professor of cloud and cybersecurity. But over the years, we've researched, must be close to 200 use cases in new emerging technologies, and we have been around blockchain technology for a long time. So what we've developed, smart cities, is very much, if you ask somebody what a smart city is at this moment in time, you'll probably get, if you ask 10 people, you get 10 different answers. But one of the focuses is to make it smarter. And that is how we can bring in line technology, but how we work along what we're doing. And one thing that we've developed is what's called the Yotta traps, which is a transparent record accountability protocol system, which underpins smart city framework and how people can operate. And during this pandemic, what has been highlighted is several issues, really. I mean, we work very closely with the UK Department of Trade and Industry, and also have conversations a lot across Southeast Asia and also India. And one of the topics that's come up is the government grants and funding to people have been very difficult to get to the people who actually need it. So this is where new digital banking solutions and DeFi will actually come into its own. So decentralized finance is moving away from banking. What people require is access to funds, to be able to go contactless, to be able to go cashless, but not necessarily require a full banking solution. So what we have done, we're not necessarily moving into the banking space. What we're doing is building a platform to allow organizations to transfer a monetary asset from one person to another at a very quick pace, which is, we've tested it, it's generally within, several minutes. So part of what we're doing is looking at this from a holistic point of view and an ecosystem. So by edge computing, bringing in new emerging technologies, how that all sits together, but also agriculture and how we can move agriculture closer to where it is actually being. Dr. Parathi, based in Singapore, who is a PhD of agriculture and technology, is looking at how we can bring in vertical farming, food security. One of the issues at the very beginning of the pandemic, Singapore being one, Sonny, is that it was running out of food because Singapore do not grow or produce its own food. And it was the food security behind it. And that's why the government in Singapore are now looking at car parks, multi-story car parks, to convert them into vertical farming, which can be done through new technologies. Our research, we are 2021, we are looking at opening a new quantum-inspired research facility in Thailand, and an R&D center. And then obviously digital banking using tokenomics, cashless systems, and I'll touch on our Zakat project towards the end of the slides. So what we have also done is edge computing is now escalating, and edge cloud very much so. When I explain, if we think of edge cloud, it would not work if there was one ATM cash machine in a city, or there was one fuel petrol station in a city. But cloud computing has been primarily large warehouse data centers, and by bringing this closer to the people who required the data storage, called edge, one, it reduces the huge power consumptions the data centers have, but also the latency. So there's a lot of advances that come along with edge cloud, and we have developed our own cloud platform system to be able to host this. So one of the key topics why we are looking at what we're doing is there's 1.7 billion people in the world that are currently unbanked. And one of the issues here is looking at going from a cash society to a cashless society. And by giving these people access to solutions, not only brings them into the banking community, but also allows them to transfer funds from people to people. And this can all be done with a simple smartphone, which, you know, I think some of the studies we've done, Thailand, there is 2 mobile phones to every person. So the actual smart devices are out there. It's having the application to be able to do it. So as we've touched on, agriculture is very much so about bringing technology and agri-tech closer together, growing produce that reduces the carbon footprint by containerization, vertical farming into local areas. We now know that the future is going to be that you'll be able to pick your greens, your grown produce that is actually grown at the back of the store that you're buying it from, rather than traveling hundreds and sometimes thousands of miles, going on container ships and so on, when it can actually be done locally, and that reduces the carbon footprint, but also makes it more sustainable and fresher, because we waste a lot of food just by it going off, basically. So what we are currently doing is building the exchange, the ecosystem and platform that people can go on and transfer the assets to the individuals. R&D academia is quite close to my heart and our team, and that is where we are advancing. We've got the facility here in the UK, we're looking at Thailand, and we're also looking at India. We've got some advanced conversations going on also in Dubai at this moment in time as well. So by bringing academia into what we're doing, it brings the latest technologies we can incubate, but also one of the focuses is about educating individuals that the technology, and it's been said now that, you know, smart homes, smart devices have been around for a long time. It's about educating and taking away the fear. One of the fears for driverless vehicles is when you've got a driven vehicle and a driverless vehicle will go past, it could cause an accident because people are rubbernecking and looking at this car driving with nobody in it. But we know that one of the biggest issues globally is road traffic accidents and deaths by road traffic accidents. But I can talk about that for hours. But what we're doing is bringing the solutions and enhancing it. So your smart car will actually be a smart wallet that will autonomously pay for parking, will pay for tires, it can pay for fuel, whether that's electric or traditional, and the car will actually be its own digital wallet. So we're in the process. Q1, we're looking at end of January to have the whole system developed, and so it will be a mobile application, digital web wallet, and this will then allow other tokenomics to sit on our exchange as well. So cloud digital banking is where we are moving towards. We are now seeing the more governments. At first they were, it will never happen. Then it was negative, but now they're all coming to stick the head above the parapet and start saying, well, actually, yeah, we need to look at this. And tokens and cryptography, it reduces the elimination of double spend, fraud, but also transparency as well. And to be able to have access through ATM, Visa and MasterCard are now advancing their technologies because they know that it's opening up a whole new ecosystem for them as well. So our process is food security, low carbon footprint, but also looking at how we can combine the whole ecosystem together.
Right.
So we're, like I say, the exchange, bringing the developments to people so they can have access, and it can be done very quick, and also get KYC that is built into there as well. So the Indonesian project that we're currently doing is around zakat. So zakat is a pillar of Islam. It is the collection of funds that is donated and then is distributed to good causes. That could be anything from building a hospital through to supporting a family. But it's about having the transparency to be able to do this on a blockchain enabled system. And so if you was to donate some money, you want to know where that's being spent, how it's being spent. And by building the platform, that's what we're now doing, working with the government. And that's now opened up doors. We're talking to the Zakat board in India, in Dubai and UAE, to also replicate what we're doing. And this takes us on to what is a great topic for me, is digital twinning. So digital twinning is about picking up what we're doing in one location and replicating it in another location, because agriculture, technology, getting money to people or getting tokens to people very quickly is an issue globally. It's not just geographic to one location. So this is about bringing in NGOs, bringing in other organizations into
We've got
the
30 more seconds. Thank you.
Sure. So as I say, we work very closely with our DIT and do many trade missions. And that is where we are. So I think I timed that quite well, Sonny.
Yeah.
Especially for me, who you know, an hour and a half is quite easy. But I'm quite happy to open any questions up. But we are looking at bringing on partners, bringing on investors, whether geographic or into Yotta itself. So over to you guys.
Thank you, Gary, for that presentation. Now we open the floor for questions from the speakers. Who would like to go first?
I'd like to go first.
Yes, please.
Okay, that was a very interesting presentation, Gary. Thank you. I think out of the whole presentation, I think one of the things that stood out for me was your cloud storage, and I would like to get to get a little bit better understanding on that. That's one. Two, I wasn't quite clear. Are you building a new protocol or you're building a decentralized application or decentralized a total dApps to develop your whole ecosystem? And then what protocol are you using for that? And three, you had mentioned decentralized finance. So I wanted to know if there are any innovative, maybe asset management solutions that, or money market solutions that you possibly incorporate into that model with the zakat.
Yeah, so the zakat is there will be a peer-to-peer, there will be a donation transparent system. But the protocol that we are developing is a full DeFi, so we can host other tokens on there as well. Okay, and there will be facilities that by March we will have a P2P lending system on there as well, that opens up whole new avenues for micro businesses that want to bring communities into projects. But the advantages with smart contracts and by the tokenomics is a company might raise 10,000, 10 million, but do they actually require all out in one go? The answer is no. So it's about understanding and securing the assets for the lender as well. So the smart contract can actually be built in there. It drip feeds the money in, or autonomously, processes invoicing and so on. What we've discovered is that access to money has been in our DNA for 100 odd years. The actual reality is that people don't need money. What they need is access to monetary solutions. So by the tokenomics, it actually enables people to have a token that they can use. One of the discussions we're having with farmers in India, FPOs, is by having a token that they can only use to purchase grain or fertilizer or farming produce to enhance the farm, rather than giving them a monetary value, a fiat that can be utilized anywhere. And then, so it actually encourages the lender that the funds are only being used for the purpose that they were given. But this is where the new ecosystem is coming into its own.
Chelly, you are on mute.
Oh, sorry. And your cloud computing model?
Yeah, so what we've developed is an edge cloud platform. So by bringing the cloud or data storage closer, it reduces the size, but it can also be powered by alternative energy. We know that it's 80% more energy efficient than traditional cloud, because you don't need the air conditioning, because it can be anything from a desktop to an ATM size cube up to 5 petabytes.
And this is operational now.
Yeah, so we've got it in a beta version, but that is what we're doing with Indonesia. So we will be looking at distributing 5 what we call Yotta cubes, and then we can geolocate the data. So the data is secured in that geographical area, and then can only be accessed through a private network.
Okay.
Right, great. And Natasha, do you have any questions for Gary?
I'm interested in, Gary brought in a very interesting point of tokenization he's doing for the farmers in India. How is he doing the outreach for them? So they're still trying to get their hands on a smartphone, and the positioning of trying to get them used to cryptocurrency. I don't know. How do they perceive it? What's the reaction you're getting?
Yeah, so like I said in one of the slides, it's about education. And there's a lot of misinformation around what is cryptocurrency, what is a crypto token. So one of the topics that we're dealing with is obviously educating what is a crypto token, what is the utilization of it, and how it can be utilized. When it comes to the technology side, what we can actually do is have tablets actually at the FPO side. So rather than every single individual having a device, you can have an EPOS terminal in the FPO that people go to using facial recognition, using KYC, cryptography. So it's about having the technology that is simplistic and easy to use, but also transparent as well.
Yeah, Jose, I think you have some question to ask.
I think Gary, you can probably seek some sort of collaborative initiative with Natasha, because she is based out of India and very much into agri-tech space.
Yeah, and several of our guys are based in Delhi, so I can have an offline conversation and then
Yeah, sure, definitely.
put you in touch.
Jose, I understand you're gonna obviously you have a hard stop in 8 minutes. Any questions for Gary? I think Jose is frozen on
We're
us.
having some issue with this, yeah.
Yeah. So okay, when okay, he's back. Jose, you frozen us. Are you back now? Hello, Jose. You back?
I think it's connectivity.
Okay. So let's take some closing remarks while he's fully back. I'd like to ask Natasha, just conscious of the time. Natasha, some closing remarks for the show today. And yes, and so and where
I
can
think this was very interesting. What the discussion which we had, and it was very engaging. Gary brought some interesting perspective on how he's placed in the ecosystem, tackling this current situation using crypto. So I have been associated with VCTV for a while, and during the pandemic, I think there was a huge upsurge for webinars. But yeah, I think going forward, I did recollect that you have a platform as well for startups where they will be pitching of those sort of things. I think if we could possibly engage those sort of elements, like we had something with Gary talk about his startup. It was interesting to hear something unique what he was doing. To have a mixture of both and make it like a Shark Tank sort of a series out of it or something of the sort. So it becomes very engaging and interesting for anyone who is new to the ecosystem to get the gist of it in a short episode of yours.
Absolutely, Natasha. This is what we're working towards, and we strive to bring in entrepreneurs like Gary to pitch and share their.
Just share their ideas, just talk about it, you know. So that's and keep it two ways about it. So it's you take back something new.
Great feedback. Thank you, Natasha. Thank you so much for that. Telly, over to you with your closing remarks.
I think Jose is back. I'll do my remarks after Jose. He seems as if he's back.
Yeah, Jose, are you back? Because I tried talking to you. There wasn't any.
Yes, for some reason the connection went down. I have no idea why.
No worries. Do you have any last questions for Gary?
Well, I have so many questions, but I think it's not possible to do it in the show. There are a lot of, let's say, investors' questions, basically. But I got the picture in general, what it is. And to be able to understand better, we would need to go into some details. Some very short questions that I have. I'm a finance guy, so my questions typically are always around numbers, and numbers tell me a lot of data. They don't lie, as I always say.
Yeah,
right.
That's the good one.
So we can take this offline, and Gary and Jose can have one-on-one conversation. Sure. Excellent. Thank you so much. So Telly, can we take some closing remarks from you?
Sure. So yeah, Gary's presentation was really good. I totally understand the model. I'm a mentor to a number of these type of agri-tech startups. I ran an accelerator program a few years ago with my partner, and we were supporting, tech startups that were focused in agri-tech, clean tech, and a number of these things. So very familiar with tokenization for farmers. There is one company based in Nigeria called Agroplexy, and they work with cooperatives, farmer cooperatives. So what Natasha asked in terms of how you making the connection with farmers in India, you definitely need to perhaps use those traditional networks in order to kind of break down the capacity and training for them. What is also important, as Jose would have intimated, is we didn't really see in your presentation the financials. So it tells me you're still early, you still are building a little bit and still refining your model. My feedback to you would be that within that model, some of the things you've mentioned could be just generic use cases that generally would be used when you're using blockchain, especially for the different verticals. What for me stood out was obviously your cloud edge cloud computing, right? That was really unique because we know in these locations, especially if your focus is in developing countries like India, Bangladesh, or even in Africa, connectivity is going to be an issue. So that I would say is one of your biggest value propositions. And then obviously in the space of DeFi, you know, you started your presentation with DeFi, and I really was looking for more of those DeFi models. You explained it as I asked you, but I think having and working on the model that at that level is where the value really is, because some of the other things you mentioned are just the normal progression. You are going to be faced with a lot of competition with the other stuff, but when you start sticking to those key areas, you would definitely stand out because that's really where your value is. Um, Again, holistically, this program has been great. I really agree with Natasha. The interaction between the startups, the investors, and everybody and their insights, I think, makes it really enriching. So, Gary, wish you luck with your project. And, you know, we could connect. If you need a blockchain to use, we have a protocol, a
Great.
protocol focus in those areas. Yes, yes, Bantu,
Thank you so much.
Bantu. We're going on mainnet this in a couple weeks. Live on
Interesting,
mainnet.
very
Yeah.
interesting. I like to know as well, Telly. Thank you so much for your great feedback, Telly. Very, as Jose and Telly said, the financials are very important. So, Gary, this is just a feedback from coming from the investors to you. So, Jose, any closing remarks before we end the show? Thank you.
Yeah, so you let me just start with where you can find me. So you can find me on VCTV, definitely. You can also try to contact me on LinkedIn, which is the medium that I most use, or just search for BizMoney. My closing remarks will end today exactly how they started, and saying that we already have the technology. We need to find a way to get it fast to the populations. And I think that that's the key point today.
Great. Thank you, Joseph, for those closing remarks. And Gary, over to you. How do you feel about coming on VCTV after a break, and what's your feedback about the kind of feedback that you received on your presentation?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a pleasure, Sonny, to be on here. You know, 10 minutes is, for what we're doing, I mean, we've got 7 years experience. We've got many academic research use cases. I didn't include the financials because I wanted this to be more of a holistic overview of what we're doing, but we can most definitely touch base with the people online, and with yourself, Sonny, we're in constant communication. So, you know, by all means, anybody who's watched and want to be in part of what we're doing at Yotta, you know, by all means, contact Sonny or contact myself.
Great. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jose. Yes, thank you so much for your time today. And I hope to see you back on another panel. And yeah, take care. Connect soon. And again, those viewers and founders who'd like to connect with Jose, Natasha, and Telly, please feel free to do so. You can connect, you can reach out to me, and I can connect directly, or they obviously share their LinkedIn handle and other handles, social media handles as well. Again, investors who are looking to explore projects like Yotta, we bring in all these interesting founders onto our platform to pitch their ideas. And this was a very interesting session, feedback coming from the investors themselves. I mean, they like the format where it's very engaging and enriching. Natasha, Telly both just commented that this is quite a great format to have an engaging, enriching sort of discussion when you have a founder and you have investors. So this is what we're going to stick to. So guys who are looking to pitch, please feel free to reach out to me, and I can help you bring on VCTV. I can obviously take you through how to use the platform. It's very simple, and we can just connect with these investors. And thank you so much for your time, all of you, and have a great day, great evening, and please stay connected, take care, and speak soon. Bye.